Aloha and good afternoon. Thanks for joining us here on this Aloha Friday. We begin today with new news out of West Oahu as the state is now stepping in to help address a recent spate of gun violence out there.
Governor Josh Green says there is now a plan to bring significantly more law enforcement support to Waianae. Mahealani Richardson has the details.
The governor's announcement comes after 3 shootings in less than 2 weeks, 2 of them leading to deaths. Now, the other happened just last night where 2 teens were shot, seriously hurt. We'll have more on that in just a minute. Now, the governor says the plan for more support includes state sheriffs, doe care officers, and other law enforcement. He calls it a partnership with Mayor Blangiardi, HPD Chief Joe Logan, Councilwoman Andrea Tupola, and other local officials. Last night's shooting happened at about 8:30 last night when police say they were called to an area of Ala Street. That's where EMS treated a 15-year-old boy with multiple gunshot wounds before rushing him to a hospital in serious condition. Now, around that time, a 19-year-old man walked up to an ambulance nearby on Farrington Highway. He also had multiple gunshot wounds. He was treated and taken to a hospital in serious condition. Now, the investigation is underway. No arrests have been made and no word if police are searching for a suspect. Now, this comes a day after police shot and killed a man who opened fire on Puhinalo Place in Waianae after an argument with his girlfriend. HPD says the suspect, identified by neighbors as Alston Kaipo Awong, used a stolen handgun to shoot 3 people, 2 women in their 30s and a 25-year-old man. They were all in serious condition. The 70-year-old woman was also assaulted and hurt. 4 others in the home, including 2 children, were not injured. HPD's chief says that when police arrived, they heard screaming from inside.
They ran to the back of the house and found a male armed with a handgun. The male was standing just inside a shattered glass door. The closest officer repeatedly ordered the male to drop the firearm. Instead of putting the gun down, the male racked around or pulled the slide back and let it slide forward. At this time, the officer fired 2 rounds at the suspect. The male fell to the ground, and the officer administered first aid until paramedics arrived.
Based on court records, Awong had 14 criminal convictions, including 11 felonies. The officer who fired his weapon has been offered administrative leave, which is standard protocol. Now, both of these shootings come just a week after a man was shot and killed at the Waianae boat harbor, and the community is grappling with how to make it stop.
The drug is the most important one, yeah. And the guns especially, but I don't know what's going on. It's different when I was growing up.
Now, Police Chief Joe Logan is calling on the community that if they know of dangerous activity in their neighborhood, they should call police. So if you see something, say something. I'm Mahealani Richardson, Hawaii News Now.
Thank you so much, Mahea. In other news, a Hawaii man will serve 20 years in federal prison for the sextortion of a teenager. Gerardo Javier Montez communicated with a 14-year-old Missouri girl online in late 2021 and manipulated her to send explicit photos. When she tried to cut off contact, he then tried to blackmail her and shared her photos via online instant messaging groups. Prosecutors say Montez also traded explicit images of other minors as well. He pleaded guilty in March to distributing child pornography. In the battleground state of North Carolina, Vice President Kamala Harris announced how she plans to tackle corporate price gouging if she's elected president. However, former President Donald Trump is claiming her proposals are price fixing while calling her a communist. Willie James Inman has the latest from Washington.
In her first policy speech since becoming the Democratic Party's presidential nominee, Vice President Kamala Harris acknowledged the toll of inflation on America's middle class and proposed what she calls an opportunity economy.
An economy where everyone can compete and have a real chance to succeed.
She's calling for the first ever federal ban on price gouging for food and groceries, new policies to spur home building, including offering up to $25,000 for first-time homebuyers to use as a down payment, and an expansion of the child tax credit, providing as much as $6,000 to families with newborn children. In a statement, former President Donald Trump said the proposals amount to price fixing, calling her Comrade Kamala and a full communist. At a news conference Thursday, he blamed Harris and Democratic legislation for rising costs.
She cast the tie-breaking votes that caused record inflation. She cast the votes.
Price gouging is already illegal, and Harris's proposals get mixed reviews from economists. They would also need congressional approval.
Trump, meantime, is now facing fresh backlash for praising a wealthy donor at an event Thursday night. He compared the Congressional Medal of Honor to the Presidential Medal of Freedom that he bestowed upon Miriam Adelson in 2018.
It's actually much better because everyone gets the Congressional Medal of Honor. That's soldiers. They're either in very bad shape because they've been hit so many times by bullets or they're dead. She gets it, and she's a healthy, beautiful woman.
Trump's running mate defended him Friday.
I don't think him complimenting and saying a nice word about a person who received the Presidential Medal of Freedom is in any way denigrating those who received military honors.
Trump's campaign suggested his comments were misinterpreted. Willie James Inman, CBS News, the White House.
A new poll exclusive to NBC News asked young voters in battleground states what issues are motivating them in this election. There are a number of the issues at the top of their mind. National climate reporter Chase Kane shows us the potential impact of Gen Z and millennials that are actually prioritizing the planet.
The earth is on fire!
Climate change has become a deal-breaker issue for many young Americans. 40% of voters under 35 say they will only vote for a candidate who prioritizes climate action, something young voters have been saying since the last election.
I personally am very moderate. I don't consider myself a Democrat or Republican, but I am here because climate change is the most important priority.
I want a livable future. I want green jobs. I currently go to George Washington University, and I'm worried about the job future.
This new poll, conducted by a Democratic polling firm of registered voters in 5 swing states, showed that across the political spectrum, supermajorities of young voters demand or at least prefer candidates who prioritize climate change.
Yeah, there is enough voter support, not just among Democrats, but also among Republicans, to force politicians to lead on climate. And not out of the goodness of their hearts, but because it will become the easiest way for them to win elections. But the burden is upon us as voters first, because if we don't show up, there's no reason for politicians to appeal to our priorities.
And that's the goal of the nonpartisan Environmental Voter Project. Don't change anyone's mind, just try to get young, climate-motivated Americans to vote.
And that impact could be huge. Tufts University projects that Gen Z and millennials will have a combined 104 million eligible voters this fall.
Being able to say, hey, we are going to win over and try to appeal to voters who care about climate, that does matter. It might not be the number one issue, it might not be number 3 or number 4, but in our close and polarized elections that we end up having, every demographic ends up mattering.
One influential climate action group, the Sunrise Movement, frequently organizes protests to communicate that jobs, inflation, and climate change aren't actually separate issues.
Young people want action, so it's beyond a party, and that is why we want to make sure that both nominees know and hear our demands.
I would love to see a bill that really puts forward how tackling climate change can decrease our cost of living and improve our lives. I think that includes housing, education, and jobs first and foremost. Those are really key costs right now, and also ways that we can improve people's lives.
The survey also asked voters which issues will actually get them to the polls this fall. And when they made that distinction, climate change rose above economic issues, with 78% saying climate is motivating them to vote. In Los Angeles, I'm National Climate Reporter Chase Kane.
Housing solutions on Maui. They aren't going to solve the crisis, but they are helping. Ben Gutierrez has details on 2 new projects that are helping in different ways.
The Lahaina Community Land Trust now owns this lot on Lokia Street. There used to be a 4-bedroom, 3-bath home that was destroyed in the August 8th wildfire. It was owned by a couple in their 80s. They left Lahaina but didn't want their land to be commercialized.
In the sale of their property, they want to also try and protect the community and give back to the community. And those are the kinds of transactions I think we'll be very successful at.
This is the first parcel sold to the nonprofit, which plans to build a home and 2 ohana units. The home would then be sold to a local family chosen through a lottery with a 99-year lease on the land. The trust says that way the homes are more affordable and the land remains in Lahaina hands.
Although we want to protect as much property as we can here, we know that it's not going to be the case that we can go after 100% of the homes that come up for sale. But we want to try.
Meanwhile, in Kihei, ground has been broken on Liloa Hale, a nearly $78 million rental community for kupuna.
When we saw what happened in West Maui, I think a lot of us knew, and I was the housing chair in the House at the time, we needed to really focus on permanent housing.
Developers say the 3-story building will have 1 and 2 bedroom units for seniors 55 and over who earn 30 to 60% of the area's median income.
Because the kupuna of Maui were among those that are most deeply affected by the tragedy, and this project will place 117 new inventory where it's needed most.
Construction on Liloa Hale is set to begin this month with completion in March 2026.
Hokule'a's statewide sail voyage is delayed due to the chance of rough weather. The canoe was scheduled to depart Sand Island yesterday afternoon and sail to Hanalei on Kauai, the first stop on its Pai'aina statewide sail. The crew is monitoring a potential tropical cyclone about 900 miles southeast of the state that could affect ocean conditions. If the weather is deemed okay, the crew could set sail later today. The UH Board of Regents says the search for the next UH president is on schedule. More than 90 people applied, and finalists will be announced next month. Public forums will be held, and the new president could be named in October or November with a start date in early 2025. Current President David Lassner is retiring at the end of the year.
Let's send you live outside now. This is Hilo, Hawaii. Of course, on this Aloha Friday, it is small kind rainy out there, but small kind. Cannot even see Hilo, but that's okay because, that's the Hilo way. Stay with us. We'll have more island news and weather coming up right after this.
How's it on this Aloha Friday? The weather is still looking very, very nice and relatively calm. However, there is one area of disturbance we are tracking. It's now made it into the Central Pacific. It doesn't look like much, just a cluster of thunderstorms. But the National Hurricane Center says there's a low chance in the next 48 hours it becomes a cyclone. But in the next, 5 days, there's a higher chance, 50% chance that it becomes either a tropical depression or a tropical storm. So really, we're not expecting a lot of it. And whatever is left of it is going to move to our south. You can see this morning there are a few scattered showers. These are still leftovers from Tropical Storm Emilia, likely to affect the windward sides of Oahu and maybe even on Kauai. Rainfall totals will remain light though. And as the disturbance that used to be Emilia moves away, trade winds will start to fill in. So trade winds will be stronger today than they were yesterday, and they'll hold firm for the next several days into the middle of next week, maybe even beyond that. So this is what we'll see today and through the weekend. A few morning showers for windward sides, lots of afternoon sunshine, high temperatures running to about 89 degrees with winds running out of the east at 15 to 20. And because of those winds, it's still going to be rather choppy on the east side. That small southwest swell will be dropping today. We'll still have some fun-sized waves in town. But on Sunday, that's when a more significant swell is due into south and west shores. And then sometime middle of next week, heads up, we got a country swell that could be pretty good size. So we'll keep track of that as well. So lots of sunshine going into the weekend, but on Sunday into Monday, a weak disturbance could increase the windward and Mauka showers for the east end of the state. We're talking Maui and Hawaii Island. The rest of us won't see very much. A few more clouds on Tuesday, and then back to mostly dry conditions on Wednesday.
The Chinatown community is coming together this weekend to clean up the neighborhood. Casey Lund tells us who's pitching in and how you can help.
Alrighty, maybe one more coat of paint here on this door at a business on South King. This is where a lot of work is going to be happening, but really all over Chinatown for the cleanup happening, organized by the Chinese Chamber of Commerce with other partners like the city, a lot of different businesses to talk a little bit more about it. Happening tomorrow, I want to introduce Sarah Moy. She is with us. I won't shake your hand since I'm a little painty, but I did want to thank you for being down here to talk about this really important effort. Of course, this isn't the first Chinatown cleanup, but tell me a little bit about what's happening tomorrow, Sarah.
Tomorrow will be a big day, where the Chinatown community comes together to work on making Chinatown a cleaner and a safer place. Chinatown really needs to get cleaner and safer if we want to be a destination place for visitors and also for the local people to come here to dine, to shop, and to enjoy the arts. It's a place full of culture and beautiful buildings.
Yeah, talk to me a little bit about the history of this place and the history of the Chinese Chamber, which is originally and still is really meant to help the merchants thrive down here, right?
Yes. You hit on it. The Chinese Chamber was actually formed in 1911 to help the merchants of Chinatown, as well as to help the immigrant population assimilate into the community. And since then, we have been very active with Chinatown outreach projects. So this cleanup started in August of 2021, right after COVID. So the whole idea is for the community to get together and really rejuvenate Chinatown. And we have continued this effort, and this is our biggest cleanup, I would say, in terms of community service here. And tomorrow, we have volunteers. We work this in partnership with the city, and also we have Hawaiian Electric. It will be the first time. Yeah,
that's right.
Us.
They're going to have some volunteers. They obviously had some trouble with the outages that they know affected customers too, but they're going to pitch in at the cleanup as well, correct?
Yes, absolutely. And you probably have heard, they have made courtesy payments to those who have filed their claims, as well as also provided a grant to our Chinese Chamber Foundation, to help with some of these outreach projects. So Hawaiian Electric will be here. They are providing resources, they're providing volunteers, and we have banks like Home Street Bank, Coldwell Banker, American Savings Bank will all be here to join in that effort.
Wonderful. I know that Don Murphy from Murphy's is cooking. It's just so cool. These events, I used to live in Chinatown. I love it down here. And I will say in a few years since the pandemic, there's been so much positive resiliency, really stories of strength, people obviously losing their businesses, but others holding on through the help of so many of these organizations that come together and really make a difference. So, Sarah, I appreciate your time today. If you want to learn more about the cleanup happening or get connected with the Chinese Chamber of Commerce, you can do that at hawaiinewsnow.com. The cleanup is happening from 9 to noon tomorrow here in Chinatown. We'll send things back into the studio for now.
The use of weight loss drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy has boomed in the recent years, with sales of the top drugs reaching $15 billion in 2023. But the off-brand compounded versions of the medications are also growing, and that has the FDA warning about possible overdoses. Bradley Blackburn has more.
The ads are everywhere.
To lose 15% of your body weight.
Many companies promising weight loss drugs for way less money than name brand prescriptions.
Or as little as $1.99 per month, including options compounded in the USA.
For Becky Chairs, the deal was too good to pass up.
$295 a month or something. Let's see how it goes.
The family therapist says she got a prescription for compounded semaglutide online, but when she received her first shipment from a compounding pharmacy, she misunderstood the instructions and accidentally overdosed.
My first dose was really supposed to be like 0.5 units, like a really tiny dose. And I gave myself 5 times the dose. Like 9 o'clock at night, I was going, man, I'm feeling sick.
Because name brands like Ozempic are on the FDA's drug shortage list, compounded versions of semaglutide are allowed on the market. Compounding pharmacists can alter or combine medications and tailor them to individual patients. But recently, the FDA put out a warning those compounded drugs often don't come pre-measured. They've received reports of hospitalizations from overdoses with symptoms like nausea and severe vomiting that can last a week. CBS News medical contributor Dr. Celine Gounder says compounded drugs come with many unknowns.
They have not been safety tested. We don't know if they're as effective as the prescription drug. So it's really hard to say, is what you're getting really equivalent or not? We just don't know.
Chairs is still taking the medicine, pleased with her results, but she's noticed dosage can change from one shipment to the next.
The type is so small on them, I can barely read it. Absolutely make sure you're doing the right dose.
A warning for the millions now turning to these drugs. Bradley Blackburn, CBS News, New York.
Many Disney superfans and bloggers are complaining about the high cost of a vacation at the happiest place on Earth. In response, Disney is offering a wider range of pricing and options. Tourists can also expect a bigger bang for their buck, with many new parades and shows being added to the existing attractions. According to the chairperson of Walt Disney Parks and Resorts, the theme park giant will provide as much access and flexibility as possible. Disney has touted lower-priced ticket options and value season deals at its resort hotels to allow families to visit even if they're on a tight budget. At the same time, this week, Disney announced plans for an avalanche of new attractions and lands at its parks. The more than $60 billion in investment is underway, doubling the size of the Avengers campus at Disneyland. The Magic Kingdom will also get a new land based on Disney villains and its first suspended roller coaster at Hollywood Studios in Orlando. In today's Good News Now, let's take a field trip to Rome. An ancient Roman aqueduct powers one of the most famous landmarks in the Eternal City. Ben Wiedemann reports.
For centuries, cool, crystal clear water has cascaded from Rome's Trevi fountain. Once a vital source of water for residents, now a must-see for tourists flocking to the Eternal City. Most perhaps unaware that this masterpiece of Baroque art is fed by an ancient aqueduct. The secret lies far below. Down a corkscrew staircase, 25 meters or more than 80 feet below the surface. To an underground aqueduct the Romans called Aqua Virgo, virgin water. Some Roman historians say the name came from a young woman who showed parched Roman soldiers where water bubbled to the surface east of the city. We wade through those waters with Marco Tessan, whose job is to make sure Rome's aqueducts continue to flow. In Roman times, he tells me, the water was much higher, designed to bring as much water as possible to Rome. At its height, ancient Rome had more than 1 million thirsty inhabitants.
In total, the ancient Romans built 11 aqueducts to provide water to the city. This was the 6th one. It was built 2,043 years ago, and it's still working.
The other aqueducts, all above ground, were destroyed as the barbarians overran the empire. The Aqua Virgo, almost completely underground, was spared. Today, its waters feed the Trevi and other fountains and irrigate many of Rome's parks. It's the task of Acea, Rome's water and electricity authority, to prevent harm to the monuments that make this city unique. We have a variety of treatments to eliminate salts and calcium to make the water as neutral as possible to avoid damaging the fountain, Marco says. A feat of engineering more than 2,000 years old and still flowing strong. They certainly don't make things like they used to. Ben Wiedemann, CNN, under Rome.
So fascinating. Ash, have you ever been there?
I have, to that fountain.
Really?
Yeah, the Trevi Fountain. Yes.
And
Rome
what was that
great.
like?
It was bananas, like packed with tourists, but such a great city.
Yeah.
It's, you know, you see the old history with like the modern day shops. It's really cool.
Did you make a wish? Toss a coin in?
I sure did.
Did the wish come true since then?
I don't remember what I wished for. Hopefully it did.
Then we guess we got to go back and make another wish.
That's right.
Let's end today outside with one more live look. This time, beautiful Honolulu. Have a great weekend.